Hi, it's Maija here with my Owntober wrap-up, and these are books 105 to 109 that I've read this year so far. Owntober was a challenge about reading your own books that you had bought before October this year, and it was run by a book blog called Books and Munchies. And I managed to read one novel, one novelette, one anthology, and 2 comics for this challenge. Let's start with the novelette first, and that was The Jewel and Her Lapidary by Fran Wilde, which is a fantasy novelette. It's about these 2 girls who are the only ones left standing when a royal family is betrayed and the palace is attacked by a neighboring country. The main characters are a princess of the royal family and her servant called a lapidary. Unfortunately, I had such a hard time getting into this. I couldn't connect with it at all. I couldn't connect with the characters or the plot or even the world. I did finish it because it was so short, it felt silly to not finish it, but it took me quite a long time for such a short novelette, and I just didn't feel like picking it up whenever I put it down. I liked elements of the world building. For example, there was this thing where the gems of this world are magical, and lapidaries are people who can hear the gems and use their magic, but that will slowly drive them mad. So they are linked to what they call jewels, who are noble non-magic users. So they are linked to their service, and then they won't go mad as long as their sort of chains survive. So there were some big good ideas in this, and this is said to be an epic fantasy in miniature, and that might be why I didn't enjoy it that much, because there was so much in it. There was so many ideas, and it just left me colder than a smaller story would have left me, and this one just wasn't for me, and I gave it 2 stars. Then I finished an anthology called Queers Destroy Science Fiction. This is by Lightspeed magazine, and it was kickstarted back in 2015, and I've been slowly reading it ever since. I only had these short personal essays right at the back left to read, so I read those during Owntober. Because it has been so long since I started reading this, it's quite hard to remember the stories that I have read. I have some difficulty in talking about this, but the 2 stories I think I remember the best from this are Nothing is Pixels Here by Joe Sparrow, and it's about a romance in a virtual world and also about self-identity, and also Die Sophie Die by Susan Jane Bigelow, and that was a story about a woman who is targeted by an online troll. Before this, I had finished the anthology Queers Destroy Fantasy, and to no surprise, I preferred that one. I gave the fantasy one 4 stars, and I gave this one 3 stars. The novel that I read was a young adult novel called Hollow Pike by Juno Dawson, and I picked this one up because I wanted a witchy read for Halloween. This is about a girl who moves in with her sister because she has been bullied in school, so she moves to a new town called Hollow Pike, which has a history of witchcraft. So the main characters are all high schoolers, and there's this mean popular girl, and there's this weird cool clique that the main character finds her friends in. And I was expecting something more like The Craft, a supernatural novel with actual supernatural elements, but sadly this was more of a contemporary young adult thriller. So there really wasn't that much witchcraft in it. In fact, the tagline for this is Hollow Pike, where witchcraft never sleeps. And I'm like, doesn't it though? I liked when the motivations of the villain were revealed. It was a nice twist and even a little bit of a message there, but I did guess the main baddie very early on. I also didn't care about any of the characters, so that's always bad. So this is my definition of a 2-star book. It just wasn't for me. I am not the target audience. I wanted something with more supernatural elements, and this is a young adult thriller. All 3 of those books I read e-copies of, so that's why I'm showing you the covers on my tablet, because I don't think it would be very interesting to show you the black and white covers on my Kindle. So moving on to something more visually interesting perhaps, those are the 2 comics I read, and the first of those is Beneath the Dead Oak Tree by Emily Carroll, and I love Emily Carroll, so I picked this one up from a small publisher called Shortbox. And it's a horror comic where the story is told, the text is in the form of a poem. If you have read Carroll's Through the Woods, you know what I'm talking about. It's about these 2 fox creatures who meet at the ball, and the man is trying to get the woman to meet him beneath the dead oak tree. You can see that it's in the form of a poem. The first 2 pages go, look, see? That is you, and that is me. Let's meet tonight beneath the dead oak tree. The story beats in this were so good. It's a really short comic, so I'm not going to tell you anything else, just the premise that I just told you. And the dark, at parts gory and at parts beautiful art is completely my aesthetic. I love this and I gave this 5 stars. Another comic that I ordered from Shortbox was Homunculus by Joe Sparrow, and this is a science fiction comic about an AI who is this huge metal box. The AI is inside that, so that's sort of its body. It starts when the AI wakes up and meets the scientist that created it, and I don't want to give too much away about the plot because this is also a quite short story. This comic took me completely by surprise. It was so well done. I felt so much sympathy for the AI character, and there were some sequences that flowed so beautifully. They were so well done. The passage of time was done so well, and it was just really good. And I also ordered this from Shortbox, so the 2 things that I've now bought from Shortbox were both really, really good. I gave this one 4.5 stars. So those were all the things that I finished for Owntober. I also read a bit of a couple of things. I read most of The Dragon Keeper by Robin Hobb, the first book in her Wilde Chronicles, but I still had the final chapter left to read when October ended, and I finished it in November. And then I also got halfway through Power and Magic, which is a queer witch comics anthology from a team of 17 women, demigirls and bi-gender creators of color. But I'm going to talk about more of those in my November wrap-up, and that's all from me for now, and I will see you in my next video.